Good day, everyone. How are you all doing? This is Yixit Adman Crypto, back again with another video. In this video, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin's price action. We're going to be looking at a lot of altcoins and look at some of the BTC pairings. Bitcoin is looking very interesting right now, so it's important to break it down and see where it's headed. So let's run this intro and get straight into it. So let's get started with Bitcoin straight away. I mentioned this in my private Telegram group. Link for that is in the description. And what I mentioned is that it looks like, as you can now see, it's forming a head and shoulders pattern. And the neckline being, roughly in this region, which, is confluencing with this kind of support area as well. We've had a couple of dips in this area. So just 30 to 31,000, potentially up to 32, seems to be an important area. And if we close below that, then we could see a move downwards towards, that 27k area, maybe a bit lower. Even just shy of 30 down to 29. In this area there isn't too much resistance. It seems to be all in this area, and obviously we've got the wick down to this point. So that's what Bitcoin is looking like, and this is the 4 hourly. So on the daily, I did put a line down at 27, but on the daily we can see that there are these two wicks acting as a sort of trend line for those wicks. So if we see a retest of this trend line and a close below, then again we could see some downside towards the next area of around 27. On the daily though, it doesn't look like there's too much resistance or support in this area. The main resistance on the daily time frame looks like it's in this area of around 23 to 24,000. So let's see how it continues going forward. We're starting to turn around a little bit here from this kind of resistance support area. So this could be, short-lived correction. Who knows? We've already corrected a fair amount. I think it was about 20 to the bottom of that wick, about 27. But at this moment, it's about 17% down. If we do actually close below and go towards that 27k region, that would be about 36% correction, which is pretty good. If we correct to that level, pick up all those and buy all that extra liquidity, all the spectators that have been waiting on the sideline, that would be very good. A lot of people, even in my own conversations with some friends that haven't jumped in, are waiting for Bitcoin to get to the 20s area to jump in. So I think this is probably the same with a lot of people. They're waiting for Bitcoin. Those that didn't get in are waiting for Bitcoin to get to the 20,000 something level. So let's see. But for the moment, it's holding steady. It's holding steady in this area for the moment. Ethereum, similar to Bitcoin, it's pretty much copied the same move, except a larger candlestick in the middle. But if you move to the 4 hourly, there seems to be a crucial support level at around 960, 975. This area seems to be quite important. We have wicked into this area a few times since this move down. But if we close below this, I think it will open up potentially down to the 800 levels. You've got a massive wick at about 891, but there's a lot of support, especially in the daily time frame, the weekly. These important levels right here, 815, even down to 780. But this area here could provide us some more support if we go further down. Let's move over to some altcoins. Firstly, let's start with Tomochain. So Tomochain is actually looking quite interesting once you look at it again. So obviously we had this massive rally from that COVID-19 crash, and we've retraced since that point, and now we're back on our way up. But if you look at it again, this looks like a massive U-shaped correction. You know, it looks like it's bottomed out in this massive U shape, and it really does look like once we close above this, it will be a massive move to the upside. It will be in price discovery. So I'm really looking at Tomochain closely for potentially that move above the all-time high, and then, you know, price discovery. So it looks like it could be a very, very good trade once we get above that point. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to close there, you know, attack that all-time high in the next couple of days or weeks. We could very well retest this long-term trend line that has been in play for a little while, since back in March 2020. We could retest that and continue on going higher, or we could even retest this resistance level, which would now be support. So it's definitely doesn't have to be a straight road, but when it does close above this level, I think it will potentially explode to the upside. You know, I'm looking at $5 down the line, not straight away, but down the line. I mean, this move here from the candle bottom was 600%. So how much is this move? It's not even that much more, 258%. And it's a small cap as well. Bear this in mind. Small caps don't need as much volume to get to these high levels. So let's keep an eye on that. As I mentioned in previous videos, I'm starting to look more at Bitcoin pairings. So let's have a look at the Tomochain Bitcoin pairing, and it actually looks very promising potentially. This area over here is a very, very important level. As you can see, every time it's touched this, you know, massive demand zone, it's gone to the upside by about at least minimum 200%. At the same time, it touched it again after a few weeks, it went up 271%. We've now closed, we went below it, and now we're retesting it as support now. Now it may get rejected, so that's why it's a maybe, but if it closes above it, then I think potentially at some point we're going to have another huge move to the upside. You know, it could be 100%, 200%, or even up to close to 300%. So it looks promising on the Bitcoin pairing, which supports the fact that if we do close above the all-time highs on the USD pairing, then it could very well explode on both sides. Let's have a look at Kava, if I can spell. So Kava, at the moment, potentially we have a long-term trend line in play now. So of course, this is acting as resistance. Now we need to close above this to actually go on the up. The good thing is there is a long-term trend line in play as well, which has been tapped again at this level. So we may see a further tap going forward. So the thing I'm looking for is that long-term trend line to be broken, and also this resistance level. That's very important. On the daily, it looks slightly, you know, a little bit more bearish, because we've got again this long-term trend line, but also we closed above this long-term trend line previously, not too long ago. That was in just last week, and now we've got another one that we need to get past. But what I'm looking at is as well this long-term trend line from back in March, and it's formed somewhat of a triangle formation, and what I could potentially see happening is for us to test that apex, to use that as support before going on. So potentially we could see some downside before going on the up. The other thing as well is obviously we've got the Fibonacci in play, so hopefully we don't stay below this 786 level too long, as we've done previously here. Another thing I'm potentially seeing is, you know, this support level. Again, it kind of confluences with this apex. So, you know, potentially, I'm using that word a lot, we could see a 20% move to the downside before going back up. Because as well, what I'm seeing is that Kava is looking for liquidity. It's not able to find the fuel to break above this resistance, so it might need to go a bit lower to find that fuel, to find some more buy orders. So that's what I'm seeing with Kava. But as always, long term, I'm bullish on this project. It's a fantastic project. So let's move over now to the Bitcoin pairing. So on the Bitcoin pairing, it still looks like it's in the process of bottoming out. So it's closed below the only support that we had back here, and it's now retested that as resistance. So it needs to, of course, close above this. It'll have another resistance level to close above, but the same way it was able to get down so quickly, I'm sure it will be able to get back up that quickly. So Kava still has a lot of work to do on the Bitcoin pairing. There's still a fair amount of resistance in the way for it to go back on the up on the Bitcoin pairing. So let's have a look at a different crypto this week. XLM had a few requests for this. So since Stellar's massive move to the upside, it is now in a horizontal consolidation pattern. So you can see this bottom and this top. You can see that it's frequently bounce in between these two levels, and this is the upper range and the lower range. So now we're in the midpoint. We've touched the top range. What I'm potentially looking at is if we actually close below and then hit that as support, then this may be a good trade to trade it up to the midpoint or even back to the top. So that's what I'm looking at with XLM. So let's have a look at the Bitcoin pairing for XLM. So somewhat of a similar story as the USD pairing. It seems to be in a consolidation area right now. So you've got the consolidation here, and then we've got the high point over here. We've since tapped that high point earlier in November. Obviously, we had that massive move to the upside. But what I'm potentially looking at is on the bearish case, it may actually follow this trend line down to a lower region. So that would be a bit of a capitulation move, but it's potential. If it actually uses this as support, then obviously that's very good. But the main thing is it needs to close above this resistance level, and then there's not going to be too much in the way apart from this area over here. But on the dollar pairing, I am looking potentially in that consolidation region. If it hits the bottom of that support area, let's have a look at it again. If it actually hits that bottom and reverses, then that could be a good trade setup. You know, potentially 45% move or even a 130% move. But conservatively, that could be a good 45-50% move. So that's what I'm looking at with XLM. Let's finish off with SingularityNet. So SingularityNet is also in a very interesting area, similar to Tomochain, and that is because you can see when it's closed below this area, and it seems to be a massive area of demand for SingularityNet, and that's what's happened before. Now, of course, so it has repeated that. It's just closed below this area, this demand zone. It's looking to close above this now from this week. So potentially, you know, we could see some crawling, and then we could see a massive move to the upside. The only thing that will be in the way, and it's not a small thing, is this long-term trend line. All the way back from July 2018, it's hit this several times. So it needs to, it probably will, you know, once it goes to the upside, it will hit that and it will tap it as resistance. The fact that this will be the fourth touch, it will eventually get broken and it'll start moving to the upside. The other thing is that it seemed to be in a descending, broadening wedge pattern. As you can see, this trend line was widening think it's called a widening wedge or broad wedge pattern. And if we close below this somehow, then we could extend this, and it could be a very, very big move to the downside, a good 70%. So we need it to stay above this pattern, otherwise we could easily see this capitulate all the way to the downside, and we definitely do not want to be holding something like that. Let's have a look on the dollar pairing. On the dollar pairing, it actually looks quite bullish. We've seen this, nice double bottom rounding formation. As I mentioned previously, if we close above this and actually test it as support, you could easily see this next level being reached, which would be a nice 50% move, potentially 60%. And then there's not really much in the way of going back to all-time highs. So there's hope. Let's hope on the Bitcoin pairing that it doesn't actually fall back into that, broadening wedge. That would not be very good. Let's hope it actually closes above that long-term trend line and carries on going up. So that'll be all for this video. Hope you got some value from that, and see you in the next video. Peace.